Hey guys, hope you guys doing great. We're going to start. We're going to have this awesome live stream. I'm excited to have you guys. Let me know in the comments. Say hello. Let me know if my audio's working, if you guys could hear me. But I'm really excited to talk to you guys today about working with recruiters, or when you're looking to get a web development job, especially at the beginning, why it's important to make connections with recruiters. There's a couple of things I've learned after talking to one, which make working with recruiters an important part of getting a job, and where sometimes where if you just apply with your resume, that's not enough. And when you have a recruiter, they will actually make sure that your resume is seen. That's one of the benefits, but we'll talk more about it in this live stream. But those of you who are tuning in, welcome. I'm glad to have you guys here, saying hello in the comments. Always awesome to see everybody. Adrian was the first one here today, so awesome to have you, Adrian. Thank you, sir. Everybody else, welcome. 3D Games, greetings from Brazil, Latin America. So glad to be here. Well, we are glad to have you here. Thank you so much, my friend, for joining us. Yo, what's up? Lotusin, good to see you here. Logix Indie, great to see you guys. So I want to start talking a lot about, applying, getting jobs. And you're probably wondering, why is this important? Because at the end of the day, everybody needs to get a job. Everybody needs to start, working towards getting your first role or switching jobs. And the reason why I'm talking about it a lot lately is because I just quit my job. So I'm currently, I'm finishing my last 2 weeks, but after that, I'm going to be unemployed. And I am starting to look for another job. And that's why I kind of made a priority to work on my resume. I'm going to show you the way my new resume looks like. I'm not even going to bother showing you my old resume because there's no point, because my old resume wasn't working. But I'm going to show you my new resume, showed you kind of what I did. I'm going to show you a couple of things that you guys could do on LinkedIn to help you guys stand out, and some of the most important things that I learned that at least help from a perspective of a recruiter to help you guys get noticed. And those are all the things we're going to talk about today on the show. And I'm always glad to have you guys here because it's amazing. This is Coffee Code and Chat. We're going to have some coffee. We're going to have some fun. But most importantly, I want to talk to you guys and answer your questions. So don't be shy. Let me know in the comments. In the description below, everything is like any questions you guys have. So we're going to get started in a few minutes talking about it, but I just want to kind of say hello to everybody. Oh, great. I'm glad that you guys could hear me well. Super excited. Thank you, Logic. You could hear me very well. Thank you, sir. Anyway, so here's the deal. There's so many things that go into getting a job as a web developer that learning to code takes a lot of process. And a lot of times you get stuck on this idea of learning to code, which is, by the way, very important. Building up a portfolio, which is, by the way, super important. But then the third part of that is making sure that your social presence online is like ready for recruiters to connect you is super important. Having a good resume, having a LinkedIn profile if it's available in your area, and then starting to practice interviews, which I'm also going to talk about. I found this awesome course. Like, I don't get anything from it, but this is something that I'm taking, especially for those of you who are interested in getting, hired as a front-end web developer, and you're just looking to get some basic JavaScript interview stuff under your belt. I found a great course. It's an amazing course, and I'm going to share that with you as well in the video. I don't get any kickbacks from it, so it's doesn't make me any money, but I just like to share things that I find value from. So that's something we're going to talk about. So so I'm excited to start. We're going to start talking about all this stuff in just a moment, but those of you guys jumping in, say hello in the comments. Let me know anything else you guys want to talk about. Let me know any questions that you guys might have. I'd love to talk about what you guys want to talk about. There's no sense of me just talk about what I want to talk about, because more importantly, it's like, listen, if you guys have questions, I want to be the one to answer them. So, but starting out, okay, guys, we're going to start right away with this idea of having an excellent resume. And I'm also going to show you and talk to you about, like, what if you don't have any work experience, and how do you position yourself with a resume, because like obviously you can't put work experience because you didn't work anywhere somewhere. What can you do about that, and how you could use your projects that you're building to put all that stuff in your resume to make it look like you know what you're doing about it. Because the most important part about your resume is making sure that you are kind of showcasing the skills that you're learning, showcasing the stuff that's in demand, which is very important. It's something that one of the recruiters that I was talking about told me, and I'm gonna have an interview with her in a week or so, because I have to do a lot of editing on that video. I wasn't prepared for it. It was a great interview, so there's a lot of edit magic that needs to happen for it to work. But guys, I'm glad, and girls, I'm glad to have all of you here. And so let's just jump into it and talk about number one, having a good resume. And those of you who watched a couple of streams ago, my last stream, hey Hologram Nunchucks, I love your name. Thank you for joining us here. And by the way, I bet you found us from Tech Rally. I did an amazing interview with Tech Rally. If you haven't seen it, go to Tech Rally, check out my interview that I did with him. It was really awesome. He's really good at asking questions and pulling out answers. And so I think I talked about my journey and kind of what it takes to get to where you guys going really well on his show. And hopefully I'm able to do this on this podcast as well. But it was fantastic. And listen, that's what this is all about, is just talking to you guys, answering your questions, and moving forward. And I will show you my resume in just a second, tell you why it's important. But let's say hello to all the chats, guys. Man, hey Paul, did you simply save up money from your job income mostly to resign, or did any side hustle help expedite the process of quitting? So here's the thing, bro, Trippin. That was an excellent question. I did not quit because I planned to quit. I quit because the place I was working at was not the best place for me to work any longer. And I was kind of lining something up, a contract role that I'm going to get. It's temporary. It's only for a month, but that's going to kind of help me kind of float myself. And I do have a little bit of savings, but not as much as I want. So I could probably not work for a month, 2 months realistically. And I'm hoping that in that time, I'm going to have to get a job. Am I doing the smartest way of switching jobs? Probably not, and I wouldn't recommend doing that. But for whatever reasons, I had to quit. And because I have this contract aligned for a month that is going to be a really good kind of supplementary income that's going to be able to float my bills for, outside of my savings for another month. So I'll be pretty good. But I definitely, good point. I don't recommend being like, hey, let me quit my job and do the whatever. But I just have to do it in my case. And at the same time, it's putting a fire underneath my feet to be like, get your stuff together. Make sure you look the best to a recruiter to get hired. And so I did talk to a recruiter. She gave me amazing tips. I want to share those tips with you guys for sure. I want to talk today about the projects, ideas that you should have. I want to talk about my philosophy of building projects and kind of putting things together and my kind of thought process behind it, and to help you guys understand why I structure projects the way I do. And all this is around this idea of getting a job as a front-end React developer. I know that some of you guys are learning ASP.NET. Same idea still applies to that, but my perspective of getting a job is all from front end with React. And one of the reasons why I chose React, and this is one of the things that the recruiter that I talked to said, she said, one of the best things you have going for yourself, Paul, is that you're actually learning technology that's in demand. She said, you're not learning some obscure language that only one company does. You're doing React. You're doing something that with JavaScript, you're doing something that is super huge, in the industry, and there's a lot of companies hiring for that. And she also saw that I have ASP.NET and C# experience because of my previous job, and she said that's another hot topic. So there's certain things you can't go wrong with. And in my experience, if you're doing React development with JavaScript, you can't go wrong. If you're doing ASP.NET, you can't go wrong. If you're doing data science with Python, you can't go wrong, except I'm not good enough at math to be able to do data science with Python. But those of you who are really good at math, and the thing with data science, I just want to say, a lot of those positions do require a degree in mathematics or what have you. So that's something to keep in mind. That's another reason I'm not going for Python data science roles, because number one, I have zero interest in it. Number two, I don't have the background in education to be a valid candidate. And you are more likely to get a job without a degree going for web development than you are with something else. But I will talk about all this, and if I do forget about something, let me know in the comments what I'm missing and I'll answer that. And let's see here, off topic. Let's see, Jose, is it really off topic? What do we have here? Off topic, UX UI course Paul recommends some time ago, cost $9.99. I think I will grab it this time. Yeah, that is an amazing course. Listen, I reached out to the guy. I want to do an interview with him, and we didn't get our timing right. I'm going to keep reaching out for him because I do want to get him onto the podcast and talk to him because he did an amazing job. Like, what I like about his course is the complete overview where he goes from talking about some of the UX UI principles that I think everybody should be familiar with. Then he shows you and teaches you basic CSS, JavaScript. He even talks about Bootstrap and doing your layout with Bootstrap would make things easier. And then you build like 4 or 5 projects. I'm almost done with the course. I'm like 80% complete. I'm working on the projects. But that course is amazing. I highly recommend it. And that is cute. Good. Polly, say my name. Say my name. Yeah. What's up, Q? How's it going? Good to see you. Listen. Yeah. And by the way, if you guys haven't seen the Tech Rally interview he did a great job. Not now, but after you watch this, go check it out. It's like super amazing. But anyway, talking about getting a job, obviously you need to know how to code. Obviously you need to have your portfolio in place, which we'll talk about it in just a little bit later down the road. But once you start ready, once you have a portfolio, the 3 things that are super important is making sure that you have your LinkedIn and you have a good resume. And the 3rd thing is obviously your portfolio, but we're going to talk about later. So let's start with this idea of LinkedIn. You know what I mean? Because that's important. Let me get my LinkedIn on my screen here. And by the way, before we jump into LinkedIn, I know I'm like all over the place, guys, but here's the thing. Like, a lot of people say like you have to build your portfolio yourself. You have to do this. And a lot of people don't build a portfolio first themselves, meaning a site where you could showcase your projects, because sometimes you don't know enough to build it. Like, so I really big believer in teaching or doing what I preach. So like, I'm going to show you guys, I didn't build a portfolio. I found a theme and I basically just put my information in it. Like, literally not that much coding involved. And I built it with this idea. Imagine you don't even have a portfolio. Let's build a nice website that looks professional. This is a theme I got from, I think it's called Bootstrap Made or something like that website. It's amazing. But let me share that with you guys first. Let me go here. Where's my screen share button here? All right. Okay, that's a thing I'm going to talk about later. But here's my site. Bam. Now, you guys know my full name, Paul Bruslavsky. Damn. You guys, listen. This is how, like, I love the community here because I want to be not some dude on YouTube, but I want to be who I am. I'm Paul Bruslavsky. I'm a real person. And so please don't stalk me. But I just want to share with you that this is, like, what I'm doing and what I'm telling you to do is something that I did to do to get my first job. I'm not just, like, saying things here for views. I'm sharing with you my journey and how I accomplished the goal. And so here's a portfolio that I did not build myself. I mean, I just got the template. You could actually get this template free from React Made. I think that's not React, Bootstrap Made. It's a website. It has a watermark on the bottom, but I paid $19 for it. So mine does not have a watermark. And so I have my LinkedIn link. I have my GitHub link, and I have my YouTube channel link. Why? I don't know why. But we have our home section. We have our about section. Basically, it kind of talks about what I do. I design and build modern user interface component enhance. But the point is, you need something that looks professional. And this is what I would recommend for all of you guys to do if you're looking to start your portfolio. And I don't even have any portfolio projects in here. So you see we have our home section, we have about, we have our skills, kind of what I do. And then we have my resume, which I will talk about more in a little bit. And then I have a way to contact me. And in here, in between skills and resume, I am going to put a portfolio section. And because I talk about all this time, I'm not going to add any of my old portfolios, but I'm going to add the portfolios that I'm building with you guys, with the community, to kind of show you the steps and the process. But as I build my portfolios that I feel proud of adding to my portfolio here, I'm going to do this. And as you could see, this is hosted at paulbraslavsky.com. I don't know if you could see it here, but if someone goes to, let's say, Google. Actually, I'm afraid to do this, but and this site hasn't been up that much, but what if I search Paul Braslavsky? And this is one way people could hear. So my LinkedIn comes in. Paul Braslavsky website doesn't come in like this. Yeah, it does. Here you go. Look, bam, I'm ranked. So whenever someone searches Paul Braslavsky, they're going to see that, oh, he has a LinkedIn profile, you know, he has a website, and they go and click on my website because it's hosted live. Bam, right there. Now, like, I'm positioning myself to be discoverable on Google. That's the whole point, to have a portfolio. And as you build your portfolios, you could add projects here. So let's see here. This is a good question. Jose, I love it. And Jose says, how do you change your LinkedIn profile and not upset your current employer? Listen, I will be changing industries. That's perfectly fine. And don't think about upsetting your employers in the sense. And I think you could block who views your LinkedIn. You could literally block your employer from being able to see that information. Now, I didn't do that just because I'm like, you know, it is what it is. But the point is your employer taking care of you? Are they providing the things that are helping you grow in life? If not, who cares? They're not going to feed your family. They're not going to take care of you. So it's all right if you try to hustle, develop a new skill, switch industries. That's what I did. I mean, and it's kind of like what I had to do. And so, like, you know what? Some people are not going to be happy about it. But the point is, you have to do what you need to do to get ahead. And that's kind of like why, to your question, I would answer, I don't care about what my employer thinks. You know what I mean? Because he's not taking care of me. He's not taking care of my family. He's not giving me opportunity to grow. So I don't want to be stuck in a place where I can't grow and move towards whatever my goal is moving forward. So important to kind of understand that and remember. And so let me switch to this front camera view because you guys see my head and it's tiny. But the point is, that's the most important part, is that you got to do what it takes for you guys to move forward, get ahead, and that's the most important part. So coming back here to this portfolio, so what I would say before doing anything, and this is a great experience to mess around with HTML, CSS. You don't really have to build it yourself, but go find a theme. So this is by chance. Okay, if you got this far in this live stream and you didn't leave somewhere else, go find a theme, and you could literally, and I'm going to see if I could look up this theme here. I think it's Bootstrap Made. I think that's the site. Look, boom, free Bootstrap templates. And I literally got this template here. Here it is, boom. I actually bought this template, but you could get it for free. As you can see here on the bottom, they have a watermark. But I bought this thing. See, it looks exactly the same. I added all my information, and I was like, I don't have the portfolio section yet, because what I'm going to do as I build a portfolio that we're building with our community, I'm going to add them here. And I'm also going to show you one thing you could do, that if you don't have work experience, how to position your portfolio in a way you could integrate it into your resume in a way that shows that you have experience. But look, this is a theme that you could get for free right now, and you could set up this home for your future portfolio that looks professional. So I have my cover photo, I have my about section, I have my skills, and I have to rewrite this, but what I kind of wrote here, the things that I want to people know that I do: HTML and CSS, JavaScript, React.js, Redux, GraphQL, and Web API and C#. And I did them in like kind of in this, on my resume at least, in an order where the things that I'm the strongest at, those are the things that come first. At this point, React should be number one. I have my resume here. We'll look at the resume in detail, but right now what I want you guys to see is that whenever you do a resume, the most important part is doing everything in bullet point format like I'm doing here, and making sure you're using, keywords like Figma, React UI, GraphQL. You want to stuff your resume with keywords so when an automatic reader goes through them, it will pick them out. And I'm also going to show you what I did on my resume, because I don't have any college education that I finished, but we'll talk about more. And I have a contact section that I still have to connect this, but basically it's for people that want to contact it, that have me contact. And so that's number one, set up a home for your portfolio. So if you want to challenge everybody that's watching the stream, go ahead, use a free thing from, iPortfolios, whatever this website is called, Bootstrap Made. Find a theme that you guys like. They have a bunch of themes and like bunch of templates, like you could see, and pick one that you like and set up a basic portfolio, kind of like I did here. You have a home, and on this portfolio, you're going to have two links. You're going to have your LinkedIn, which you're going to look at in a second, and you're going to have your GitHub. If you don't have a LinkedIn, unless you live in the country where you don't have LinkedIn, then use whatever service they have that's equivalent to LinkedIn. But you need a LinkedIn. Everybody needs a GitHub. I don't care if you're just starting out or you started. I have a lot of bad code on GitHub. It is what it is. I mean, when you're starting and you're learning, you're not going to have the most amazing code on it. But the point is, you need to constantly get into the habit of posting stuff on GitHub. So we saw this website. Can't stress it enough. That's the first thing you need. So let me jump in on the comments before we move on to that second step here. Super important. Always glad to have you. Let me take a sip of this black coffee. So good. So good. I love coffee. I do have to cut it down. Let's see here. Oh, I love this. Yep, that's a great point here. Bro, tripping. What's going on here? Let's take a look at your comment. So, great portfolio. Thank you. Do you enjoy living? And by the way, it's great because I use a template. I'm just going to be honest with you. I didn't make it from scratch, and I don't think you guys should make one either. But thank you. You guys all start right there, get that portfolio going. But do you enjoy living in Texas? Seems like Texas has a lot of React jobs. Yes, Texas does have a lot of React jobs, and I think a lot of places have a lot of React jobs just because React is very popular. But definitely do your research in your area. And I moved to Texas from Connecticut. The reason why, because Connecticut, the market was not as big, let's say, as New York or Boston. But the issue with New York and Boston, the cost of living is super high. And so instead, I moved to Austin, where cost of living is not as high as New York or Boston, but it has the same amount of jobs available. And sometimes that is what it is. The area that you live might not have all those jobs available, but React is hot. I talked to a recruiter. She's like, look, React and JavaScript is still hot. There's still a lot of jobs available. And if in your area, ASP.NET is winning over React, learning ASP.NET could be your thing, your journey. I learned it after I got my job, but if your area is like not that many React jobs compared to C# and ASP.NET, then learn ASP.NET and C#. But definitely do your market research. Make sure you guys get your stuff going. And we're going to talk about it here. Yep. Very clean resume. I'm about to show you my resume in a second to show you what it looks like. And again, for my resume, I bought a template also. You don't have to buy a template. There's a lot of free available, but I'm a big believer in spending a little bit of money on things that you want to look really, really good. And this website that I made, that I bought, was 19 bucks. My resume, I bought a bunch of different layouts. It was 49 bucks. Yeah, some people say it's expensive, and it is. And if you live in a place where it's just hard to pay 49 bucks, I understand. There's plenty of free things available, and you could kind of mimic my resume. But let me show you my resume first before jumping into LinkedIn, so you guys could see how awesome it looks. And if you saw my other resume, look, nothing like it. My other resume was utter trash, and it wasn't getting me any jobs at all. It was getting me kind of actually turned down a lot. But this is my resume. I'm going to scroll for you guys to kind of see it, and then we're going to talk about it more, kind of the section. I just want to do a quick overview. And yes, you guys are looking like, wow, you have a lot of stuff. And I have some of my old jobs that I had before I started learning to code. And by the way, I'm going to walk you guys through today and talk to you guys through to what to do on your resume if you don't have actual work experience. But you would structure it the same way. So it would look the same exact way, no different, regardless if you have work experience or not. But I'm going to show you how you could change this section here, right? How you could change it to utilize, instead of your work experience, utilize your portfolio projects experience. So I have my basic email, how people contact me. I have my paulbrasovsky.com website. That's the one we just looked at. I have on my GitHub and my LinkedIn. Please don't call my phone number, guys. I should have blocked it, but whatever. I'm pretty bad at picking up my phone anyway, so, but that's my real number. I'm a real person. I'm not just making this stuff up. So here's the thing. Okay, let's take a look at the portfolio, break it down. And if you don't want to buy a template, which I did because I just wanted to save time, you could follow this process because this is something that works. I had a couple of recruiters look at this resume. They're like, Paul, your resume is amazing. Just the structure of it, I love it. It is easy to read, easy to do. And, you know, let's talk about it. Let's look here. Before we talk about it, let's answer one more question. Is it okay to add Twitter to your portfolio? It's centered around web dev. I mean, like, if it's not showcasing how good you are as a developer, then I wouldn't add it. You know what I mean? I would only add the things to my portfolio that make sense in terms of showcasing that you are the guy for the job, or you're the gal for the job. Now, you could put Twitter not on your resume, but if you go to this website, you know, that I have, you know, my Paul Bostovsky website here, I could add Twitter here. I have Twitter. I chose not to add it, but you could add it here, but I wouldn't put it in my actual resume. In my actual resume, I would keep just the facts for doing the things for your job. And notice how I didn't add my YouTube channel because it's not going to make a difference of me getting a job. But, you know, let's talk about the resume. This is the structure that I would recommend you guys do since you're already here. And number one, when I was talking to a recruiter, she was like, look, it's very important making sure that you're learning a skill, which could be React, could be ASP.NET, whatever it is that's in demand. And obviously we have the heading here, my name, kind of like what I'm looking to do. That's perfectly fine. I have my context section, but the most important part before we get to experience is the skill section, because at a glance, you could see what it is that I do. And I put WordPress here for this job I was applying. I'm actually going to remove this because I don't want any WordPress jobs at the moment. But the point is that not only the automated reader could pick this up really clearly because I'm using these keywords, but more importantly is that recruiter or anybody that's looking to hire you, they're not going to spend a lot of time look at resume. Number one, they're going to just go through here, the skills section first, and to see if you have relevant skills that they're using. And they'll be like, oh, React Router, Redux. Oh yeah, that's something that is important in our company. That's what you need. And then they're going to look at this section, right? With the experience and what you have. And so you need to make sure that you're choosing or you're learning the hot topics that are hot. I can't stress that enough. You need to be learning the tech, not that you want to learn, but the tech that it's in demand in your area. I can't stress enough how important it is for you guys to study the things that have jobs available in your area. I can't stress that enough. And that's what she said to me. One of the most important things that people need to understand is when you decide what to learn as a developer or whatever field you're looking to get in, make sure you're picking the thing that's hot and popular, because everybody wants to date the popular chick, right? That's the same, no different when it comes to development. And I lucked out that I chose React, and that's kind of why I still recommend React to people. But I understand some people in the area that tell me, Paul, look, there's not that many React jobs. There's a lot of ASP.NET jobs. Perfect, do ASP.NET. Whereas somebody else, you know, told me like, bro, we just have PHP jobs. And I was like, listen, then you're learning PHP, but learn what's popular in your area. Coming back to, where's that button? Coming back to my portfolio, my resume here. Once they see what it is that you do, and very important to add non-technical stuff, strong verbal communication. This was something that's super important that my recruiter told me. Make sure you always talk about how you're willing to work on a team, how you're really about communication. And that's what I put: strong verbal communication, team-oriented, accountable. People want to know these things. And a lot of times why people look for your prior job experiences to see that you actually were able to hold a job and you have experience. That means you were able to work with people and stuff like that. So before I get to the experience section, let me jump into the comments, see what you guys are saying, because most importantly, I want to chat with you guys. I want to see what you guys are talking about, what you guys are doing. Jose, thank you. How much HTML, CSS, JS do you need to know before you can include that on your resume? And we will talk about that. Once we get to the portfolio part of this talk, we will talk about. So I'm going to circle back to this, Jose. I will do it. But let's first do the resume stuff. Let's do the LinkedIn stuff first. and then we're going to spend the rest of the stream talking about the portfolio, and I will talk about how we're going to go along doing it. All right, guys. So now we're back to this experience section. So obviously, I've been in the field for a while. So I worked at my current company that I'm no longer with. I have this experience. And make sure that you write stuff in actionable bullet point stuff. Don't just, this is the format you have to follow. Anything that you do has to be this way. And I'll show you how to transition this if you have no job experience, how to apply this to a portfolio. So we'll kind of jump into that in just a moment. But notice, wrote maintainable, reusable code using latest ES6, JavaScript, and React features. Very important to talk about what you do and what technologies you use. The more keywords in your resume, the better. React router is a thing if you're starting React. So I wanted to make sure I included that React router keyword here. I did, implement the React router for navigation, fetching dynamic patient data based on, URL. Context API is a thing in React. I wanted to make sure that I included that keyword in my resume. Utilize local storage to persist React application state and rehydrate context API on site reload, right? So you have to be telling the things that you do. My old resume did not have that. That's when my old resume was trash. If you saw my live stream a couple of streams ago where I compared the two, you guys saw that it was trash. But if you didn't know this, like, how do you fix it? And so after talking to Hamza, talking to other people, talking about recruiters, that's how I learned about, and Googling search. Free Code Camp has an amazing article about how to construct your resume. And let me see if I could look it up here. How to write resume. That's a great article. So if you're struggling, but I'm going to talk about it in this video. Okay, I can't find it. How to write Free Code Camp news. Okay, I don't find it here. Just Free Code Camp, search how to write a resume. Let's come back to my resume. But basically the outline, kind of the same things I'm talking about. So if you watch this video, you guys are going to be like, hey, this is great. Paul's giving us the tidbits that we need to make a good resume. And you basically write your experience. Now, if you have no experience, okay, right? Okay, my earlier experience here, I'm going to use that example. I converted static web. Actually, let's come back here. This is much more. Converted Photoshop mockups to semantic HTML and CSS. Utilize JavaScript to add behavior to the DOM. Maintain and refactor website using interface. Use like Chrome debugger that tests and fixes. I created, updated custom WordPress theme. So here, let's use this example. Let's say I did not work here, right? And how could I show this experience without having a job? How could I do that? And to do that, let me show you our community project that we're working on. Bam. So what I did is I found a website that kind of had this design. I didn't design this design because I'm not a UX, UI web designer. I'm a web developer. So my goal was not to create this design from scratch. My goal was to implement this design. So I took a screenshot photo of this, right? Saved it as a Photoshop file. And then I built this site from the Photoshop file that I saved on my computer. And this is the site. So coming back to my portfolio, converted Photoshop mockup to semantic HTML and CSS. That's exactly what I did in my portfolio project, right? So this is not a job that I have. This is a portfolio that I did, but I'm writing it as exactly the same way that I would if I were doing this at work, because that's exactly the skill you're developing. So when you have a project, you have a portfolio, write it like this. Be like, hey, I converted Photoshop file into HTML and CSS. Clearly, this is what I did here. Now, you see this behavior, how this nav bar appears and disappears. You know, like another one is here moving up, right? And then I have my form here. You know, if you type something you're not supposed to, it turns red, right? This is all JavaScript, right? And for instance, I'll use this example here, form validation with JavaScript. So coming back to my portfolio, you know, I could actually say utilize JavaScript to add behavior, use events, and modify the DOM. That's clearly exactly what I did with this JavaScript button to move up, my menu hiding on scroll. You see how the menu hides on scroll. If I shrink this down, having this button work, that's all JavaScript behavior. So if that's what you're doing, you could say utilize JavaScript to add behavior to user events, right? And that's how you start to talk about your experience, about what you're learning. And here's another one. I'll give an example that I did not put So if you have no job experience, it's something you do. I use JavaScript to do form validation, to test phone numbers, email, right? If you don't write a right email, it's not going to work, right? So you could go to your resume and you write, use JavaScript for form validation using regular expressions or whatever it is that you did. And this is going to be structured the same way. And you would say portfolio name, portfolio, and then you talk about what you did. So you structure it the same way you worked like at a job. And let's say it took you from June to July to build that project. You write June 2021 to July 2021 because it took you a month to build it. And that's how you talk about your portfolio experience to go forward. And let me know if that's making sense to you guys. Let me know if you have questions about it, because this is very important for those of you who have zero experience and you want to write a resume that looks like this. You write the resume exactly the way I wrote it here. Put the skills in the skills section, and more importantly, just exactly what you did in your resume. In your portfolio, write it in these bullet points. So treat your portfolio that you guys are building as a client project. That's all I'm saying. And use and talk about that experience in your resume the same way you talk about your job. Let me jump into the comments here. And we're going to get back to Jose's question here. And guys, don't be shy about comments. Like, I can't stress enough that I appreciate all of you guys being here. I do this because of you guys are awesome part of the community, and I want to spend as much time as I can answering your questions. So don't be shy. Put more questions into the chat, the stream, because it helps others find it, and I really appreciate it. But let's come back to Jose's question here. And Jose basically said, how much HTML, CSS, JavaScript, etc. do you need to know before you can include that in your resume? And that's exactly why I created this community, to help everybody build a portfolio. I don't teach you how to code. It's not my job to teach you how to code, because if I show you how to solve a problem, that means you're not learning. But what I do help you is I help you when you get stuck, to get unstuck and to continue forward. So it's your job to learn. But how do I help? Why do I have this community where we talk about projects? Is that exactly Jose's question that he asked? How do you know enough HTML, CSS, and JavaScript? Is when you're able to build a website on your own, not following a tutorial. So this community website, everybody that's building it, they're building it. Let me share my screen again. They're building this website on their own. So you're getting stuck. Obviously, you could use tutorials to learn how to do this stuff, but this is not a tutorial project. Nobody's going to find this project in some tutorial video. Why? Because I built this from scratch. Obviously, the people in our Discord community will be building the same project. But the point is to know if you're ready to be and showcase that you know how to use HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. These are the 3 things you need to be able to do. And this is how you know if you should add this portfolio in your resume. And I'm almost done with this one. It's like 80% complete. I do have to add a few more JavaScript features to kind of showcase that I know JavaScript well enough. It's getting there. So number 1, you need to be able to take a Figma file or a Photoshop file and be able to convert it into HTML and CSS. And one good practice, I just learned about this the other day, and you don't have to, I think it's called Dev Mentors, and they have free stuff you could use, so you don't have to pay for it. But what's interesting about this site is that this is clearly not, is it the site? No, this is not the site. Maybe it's called Dev Mentors. Yeah, this is not the site. I'm so badly unprepared today to search. So instead of showing you that site, I'm going to show you something that you could do. So we go to ThemeForest, and I'll show you the free way of doing this, and then I'll show you slightly the paid way of doing it. So you could literally look up any website, like site templates. You could click any website here. Let's pick this one. This is great. And go to live preview. And so screenshot this live Okay, let's go open the demo. Here we go. I'll show you the free way of doing it. So basically, your job as a web developer is to be able to get a mockup. So you could like screen capture this to Photoshop, all the different sections, right? You know, measure the distance here in Photoshop, get the pixels, or whatever program. You don't even have to do that in Photoshop. But basically, take a picture, take a pen and pencil, and write down like this is space here. Write down what padding is here. Write down the size of the letters, and recreate this website. So your first thing, you should be able to find a mockup, and you could just do this for free because look, you have this available. And that's kind of what we did with our first community project. We basically found the site, took a bunch of screenshots, and we did it by eye, recreating this website. Your job, you need to be able to recreate a design with HTML and CSS. Very important to do that. And I see that, yeah, the front end mentor website was not the right website. I'll find out what it is later. I'll share with you, but let's come back to this kind of process here. So you need to be able to recreate this design. You could also do, because this is what most of the time you do, people will send you a design in Figma and will ask you to recreate it. So you could literally search Figma designs, and just here's like a UI kit, right? They don't have a live preview because this is not a live website, but you'll get something like this. So this is even better. If you want to practice your development chops, is to get something like this, and you're going to have this Figma design file, which will, if you open this in Figma, it will actually show you the sizes, the color, you know, all the different things, and see if you could recreate this with HTML and CSS. By the way, this is more complex. If you could recreate this, you're definitely going to get a job. Don't have to pick something as complex as this, but your ability to be able to, this is something like advanced HTML and CSS design is going to be. But basically, to not to drum on and on and on, you need to be able to take a HTML Photoshop design or image of a website and recreate it yourself. And you have to be able to make it responsive, so as you shrink the screen, everything shrinks accordingly and looks beautiful and nice. So that's step number one. Number two, you need to add basic JavaScript functionality. Important things to remember: doing form validation. So if someone types in a valid name, okay, it's going to validate to, okay, that's allowed. If someone tries to put weird numbers, that's not allowed. So you need to be able to do JavaScript form validation, basic on-click events on buttons. That was a JavaScript event that when you click the button, it moves me up to the screen. I have the mobile menu button, you know, close and open, right? That's important. I have on scroll event here, when you scroll, it hides the navigation, you know. And the other thing that I'm going to add to this, I'm going to add some sort of widget, like here when you click this, right now it does nothing. I'm going to make it open and show a bigger image. That's with JavaScript. Adding some sort of slider, maybe you add a slider of customer reviews or something, is another one that I'm going to add to this website. But basically just enough JavaScript to showcase that you understand how to work with the DOM, you know how to add basic functionality to a website. And the final step, if you saw some of my videos that I did in the past, talking about why I recommend Strapi, especially if you're doing front end, because it allows you to create an API where you're able to get blog, where you're able to create dynamic data. And so very important to maybe have some of these items, not all of these items, but let's say, you know, your portfolio section be dynamically generated from an API. And that would be like a bonus if you wanted to act. So basically, if you could create a site with HTML and CSS and JavaScript, which has basic functionality like this site here, you could, like, I could put this into my portfolio. I'm fairly proud of it. Just remove all the lorem ipsum and just actually put actual stuff here. You know what I mean? And that's how you know. I know I took a long-winded approach, probably lost a lot of people because they're like, oh, that was not as exciting. But I just want to be honest with you, kind of showcase, like, yeah, that's what you got to do. That's what you need to do to get that HTML and CSS. And we will talk about more portfolio stuff in just a moment. Let me kind of come back here to the awesome chat section, because I love when you guys are asking questions. So what are the common mistakes when it comes to making a portfolio? So very good question, Logic Indy. Let's talk about it. So when it comes to web development, if you're building a portfolio for web development,
your portfolio has to be web development projects. Like, look at this website. It's a completed website. It's not a, one widget or one card. It's a whole website. How can you test if something is a completed portfolio project if it's something that a client would ask you to do? Like, this is very feasible that someone came up to me and said, Paul, can you build me a portfolio website? I'm like, yes, I can. And this is the project. This is a portfolio website for someone. So this is something, this showcases that if a client asks me, build me a website, yes, I could do it. As you could see it showcased in this portfolio. And that's how you could tell if you're building a good project for your portfolio. It's basically something that a client would ask you to do. If you're in game development, this project would be worthless. No game development person will be like, hey, you build a website, whoop-de-doo, great job. No, your portfolio would have a game, right? That's what it would be. So your portfolio would have a game. Someone could be like, Logic actually spent some time, taught me how to make a game, which was really hard to do, man, and he does some amazing stuff, so thank you for helping me that time. But that's what he would have in his portfolio if he was looking to get a job as a game developer. He would have games, and his games would be completed games where clients like, hey, can you make me this mobile game that I could sell in the store? Boom, that's your portfolio piece. So you need to put completed projects that showcase that you could go from start to finish on a completed project. So that's a good example. Now I'm going to show you another example of so this is our first project. So your first job is to be able to create an HTML and CSS JavaScript website, kind of like I did here. That's the job, to create HTML and CSS JavaScript website to be able to, from scratch. Basically, that's your goal. Now, in our community, not saying you have to do it, your second goal is take the same exact project and convert it to the React. Why are we using the same project to convert to React? Because I want you guys to see the problems React solves and how it makes it actually easier for you to develop scalable applications. And that's why people in most places don't use too much vanilla JS for DOM manipulation, because it's very difficult and cumbersome. The same amount of code that I use to make, these functions here in this vanilla JavaScript project with React is much easier to do. And that's why right after we learn HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, complete this project that I'm showcasing you here, we're going to recreate the same project with React. And the goal of that project is for you to learn a little bit about React, understand how to build basic components, and to recreate this static website with React, patterns, and using React. And that way you're learning how to go from HTML and CSS and JavaScript to starting to dip your feet wet in React. And that is super important. And with that being said, once you build a React application, then the next step would be adding some sort of API functionality, which we'll talk about that. Now, and a good way to do that, for instance, and this is kind of what we're all going to do in our community, once we build this with React, we don't have it here, but we're going to, in our menu, add a blog section, and our blog is going to be powered by Strapi API that we will create, which will allow you to add posts and add dynamic data to your React application. And what we're going to work on is creating a basic CRUD functionality: create, read, update, and delete. And once you're able to understand how that works and how to consume an API and also being to authenticate a user. So authenticate a user, be able to create, read, update, delete, understand how that works. We're going to do that with our React blog application, which basically will look exactly like this. The only difference is going to be that it's going to have a blog section, and we're going to have a blog that's going to be dynamically generated from our API. And the reason why I'm not telling you to create something completely from scratch, because I want each project to build on top of another project, to build on top of another project, to build on top of another project. And if you're kind of in between, you're like, hey, I just finished my HTML and CSS and JavaScript, I did my React project, I'm starting to work on my CRUD application. While it's a good idea if I want to do something that's a little bit simpler, but helps me to start learning about how to work with an API. So this is, let's see if I have some open projects here. Let's see. Okay, let me close some of these windows that we don't need open. Okay, don't need that. We saw the community project. By the way, this is an example of a simple React website. So this was a very, very simple HTML and CSS website that I made. And what I did is I recreated with React. And that's kind of like what I would say. Build a basic HTML and CSS JavaScript website, then create a simple React application, and then start adding additional functionality. But that's a simple version of a React application. Let's see here. Now, I'm jumping all over the place. Here's an example. This is John Smigla, known as Coding Addict. And I just realized I wasn't sharing my screen for the basic React application, and I already closed it. Basically, it was a regular website made with React without any bells and whistles. But here's like you build your JavaScript, HTML, CSS website. You started learning React, you're building React, and instead of jumping into something that's super complicated, but you want to start learning with APIs, there's plenty of APIs available. Like this is something that I built from John Smigla's, I believe, React project course. And this is basically, we connect an API which allows you to search drinks. I'm not saying that that's what I do, but see, White Russian, we have an API, we type whatever we want, we connect to an API, and our API searches for the drinks that we want. I'm not like a big drinker, so I don't know what other drinks there are. Bloody Mary must be one. So here's the easy way for you guys to start learning about APIs, is to find some simple APIs, something more complex. And this is like, I'm not like a big fan of this guy, but he did have a great tutorial for a COVID-19 tracker. So I was like, why not? I built my own, but I built mine kind of from like this idea, see what he did, and then I built my own version of it. So you could like kind of search stuff here. You could click on the country and see, how cases of COVID, and see how many are recovered, how many people did not, and stuff like that. So here's another great example of utilizing the API to create something, But what I would recommend from the standpoint of what we're doing is create your basic website, and then after you added JavaScript, functionality, all this other great stuff, recreate it using React, and then implement create, read, update, and delete, and authentication using something like Strapi, which allows you to create an API without too much hassle. But anyway, let me look at the comments because I'm talking. Okay, not enough comments. Guys, don't be shy. Throw some questions. I'd love to answer your questions. But let's move on. So let's come back to this idea. We looked at my resume. We briefly talked about portfolio. We could come back and talk about the portfolio in just a little bit as well. But, we talked about our resume, how to structure it. Let's talk about our LinkedIn. Let's do this. And let's add more stuff here as well in the comments. I want to hear about it, guys. Don't be shy. Come on. More questions. More questions. You got to do like the chant. More questions. More questions. More questions. Great. Let's jump into this before we get to LinkedIn. What do you think about rating your skills in the portfolio like JavaScript 710 and finding more meaningful and misleading, but lots of people still do that? That's, in my opinion, don't do that. Because like rating your skills, you're basically, because it's such a thing, like it's just not good because you're asking people to judge you. Like if I say, hey, my name is Paul, and don't say anything about my looks, that's fine. But if I say, hey, my name is Paul, what do you think of how good I look like? 1 to 10. Now you're forced to judge me, and now you're forced to make an opinion about me that is outside of my control. So maybe when you see someone says 7 out of 10 JavaScript experience, for someone would be like, oh, it should be 10, And honestly, no one's going to say I'm 2 at JavaScript. You're going to give some sort of favorable score. So I would totally avoid it. I didn't do it in my portfolio site. I think it's kind of tacky and garbage. So I wouldn't do it. I don't do it. And I don't think you should create an environment on your resume where you're inviting people to judge you. Now, with that being said, something that I wanted to do is rate portfolios, because that's feedback, and sometimes it hurts when your portfolio sucks. Like I have a lot of sucky projects that like very bad, but it's important to give someone feedback and constructive criticism and do that type of rating where people could go back, they could fix their portfolio based on the feedback they got. And doing that a few times back and forth, present your portfolio, get it rated, go fix your things that weren't good, get it rated again, come back, and with that process, your portfolio will get better, 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 and all of a sudden you have an awesome portfolio. That makes sense to me, but I wouldn't put that process on my resume and my portfolio. I would wait until I'm, from my peers, from my friends, I'm getting good rating on my portfolio, and then when I feel happy, when everything works, then I will put it onto my portfolio site. I hope that answered your question. So let's jump onto LinkedIn, because ultimately we talked about tips that I got from a recruiter that help you get hired. We talked about all the resume tips I got. I showed you my resume set, how not based on how I wrote it, but based on what the recruiter said to me about my resume. They really like the structure. It looks really good compared to other resumes. They look from the structure standpoint and how you should use bullet points to talk about things. But here we are. This is my LinkedIn. Yes, I'm a real person. Yes, you guys could find me on LinkedIn and friend me. Please no spam. I go out of my way to share my true identity with you guys, so I hope you guys respect it. And the reason why I do show my true identity is because I want you to know that I'm not some dude just randomly giving you tips. I'm some dude that put these tips into practice, still learning what works and learning what doesn't, and try to make sure that all the things that we're doing are making sense and you guys are learning from them. So number one, like when people come in, this is what's going to pop up, this middle section here. So to help out, I kind of wanted to put a little picture of the tech that I use. HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React, C#, .NET. So at a glance, people could know a little bit more about me and they know what I do. Am I saying this is necessary? Maybe it's not, but I wanted to put this in here just to kind of make it clear that's what I do. The second thing people are going to look at is here. And they're going to see where you're working now. It's very important to have job experience. If you don't have job experience, we could talk about how you could do some sort of project, which you could put here as experience, or you could put your project as an experience here. But people do look at it. They want to see this. And I know when you're starting out and you don't have anything here, it's kind of tough. I totally get that. But I'm just telling you, they do look at prior experience that people have. And if you don't, we could talk about it more. At least put the technology that we work in: JavaScript, React, Redux, ASP.NET. And surprisingly, when recruiters come to your LinkedIn, this is where they go. And I had to fix this section. They right away going to scroll down and they're going to look at your, I went too far. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Okay. Don't tell me it disappeared. Experience, education, show more. Yes, they're gonna look here. They're gonna right away go to the skills section and they want to see what skills other people endorsed you in, because that shows social proof. It shows that you are doing these things. And before, like in my skills, I had, because like I started as a martial art teacher, I did a lot of marketing, I did a lot of sales jobs. So before, when you would look at these skills, look, I had marketing, sales, all this other stuff that was not personal training, was somewhere around here. YouTube, none of these skills were relevant. So I deleted and erased all the skills that were not relevant to a recruiter seeing what I do and showing them that this is what I do. So I put the most important skills that the recruiter needs to know about, that they see that this is the things that I do to hire me. And that's very important. So if you have a skill section, start to work on figuring out how to get people endorse you here for the skills that you do, and make sure that the skills that you're looking in to get a job are listed as your number 3 skills available here. It's super important here to remember. So you need to have that skills section. Very important. So that's what you said to me. People look at those things. They're going to see where you look first. Then they look at your skills, see that you have some endorsement. Also, I would recommend, if you're able to get a recommendation, because it gives social proof, not required, but it does make it look better. So I got a recommendation from someone I worked for, and they wrote something nice about me, the tech that I use. It's very important. The more recommendation you have, the more social proof you have. And one example I'm going to use, I don't know why I'm using dating as an example, but let's say you like this girl. Like, when do you have a better chance of kind of having her kind of like you back? When you randomly approach her at like a supermarket, be like, yo, I like your shoes, what's up, right? I'm sure some of you guys use that classic line that I just used, works well. Or if you're like, hey, Mike, I know you're friends with that friend. We're friends together. I think she's really awesome. Do you mind if we do a mutual hangout or introduction? Because I'd really like to get to know her better. And then your friend Mike will go to like Becca, be like, hey, Becca, I have this friend. He's really awesome, blah, blah, blah. When someone introduces like that, it gives you social proof that you're like, that you're a responsible person. Not saying that you even are, but it adds enough social proof that Becca will be more likely to talk to you than if you randomly came up to her at a supermarket being like, yo, 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 what's up? I love your sneakers. You know, not saying that I used that line before, but that's the same thing. And that's basically what your LinkedIn profile has to do, is create that feeling. So, you know, make sure you have past experience. If you don't have past experience, just list in the things that you're working on and doing, and you could put your project that you're working here, kind of the same way I talked about in your resume. You know, make sure that you come to the skills section and add the skills that you want to get hired. Like, go add new skill, find whatever the skill is, and then, you know, hopefully people will endorse you based on the skills, but it adds an additional social proof. Notice I have all these skills. Before, none of my programming skills were showing, so I had to delete all these other skills, right? Make sure that if you want to be a developer, your developer skills are showing here. And I'll come back to questions in just a second, guys. And by the way, queue up some more questions. I only see one new question, so add more questions, please, because I really want to help you. And make sure you have a recommendation or start to make connections online of people that could write recommendations for you based on your portfolio and your skills. And that's the thing. Notice one thing that I want to show you guys here, coming back to my resume. Notice, and I'm just going to say, take my word for it, you do not see my education here. And this is going to bring into my next point, why you guys should work with recruiters. So I didn't graduate college. I flunked out, so I don't put it on my resume. I'm not going to say I flunked out of college, so don't put it on. If you have a good degree, it should go on the bottom. That's what the recruiter told me. Put your, like, if you have good experience, kind of like I do here, she said, put your skills on top, put your work experience on top, and then mention your computer science degree or whatever degree you have here on the bottom, because the most important part on your resume is the skills section and this experience. And then those of you who are here or just joining us, by the way, thank you all of you for joining. I really love you guys here. You guys are the best community that I've had the pleasure to work with, because you guys are awesome. So smash the like button, like everybody says, you know. But if you don't have work experience, I did mention earlier how you could just write the name of the project that you're working, break out what you did in your project using these same bullet points, and say, I worked on this project from May to June, whatever it is, and that's your work experience. You know what I mean? Treat your projects kind of like I showed with the example using this. And if you missed it, you could always come back and watch it. And I'll talk more about it in my videos. But look, because I didn't graduate out of college, I didn't put it here as a thing, right? And we'll come back and talk more about it, but right now we're focusing on LinkedIn. So any questions about LinkedIn before we move on? Any questions about the most important things? Because the next thing I want to talk about as a recruiter, and this concept of places requiring a college degree, I want to talk about next. But guys, please add some questions in the chat. I want to hear from you guys. I do this for you guys. I do this because I want to make sure that I'm answering your questions, helping you guys get tips that help you act, do the things that you need to do to get to where you need to go. All right, and speaking about, like, I didn't graduate college. I went to University of New Haven, flunked out. I went to Manchester Community College. It did not finish. I didn't flunk out, but I did not finish. And so I don't talk about it. So I just kind of showed that section. Again, I forget to switch screens here. But basically on my LinkedIn, I showed that I don't have college degree. I don't have that experience. So here's the thing, guys. There's so many companies that, and this is why you need to work with recruiters. There's so many companies that require a college degree. They will not make a, what is that, like concession or exception for people that just send a resume. The auto detection resume thing, will read it, no college degree, out. It's like swiping left on Tinder, left. No college degree, no job. But, there's a but. There's many companies that do that. And by the way, there's other companies that don't do that. So don't feel like you're not going to get a job if you don't have a college degree or a boot camp. If you have good experience, you have a good portfolio, you're going to get there. But here's the thing. This is the number one reason why you work with a recruiter. Many reasons. But number one reason, when you give your resume to a recruiter and she really sees that you're based on your portfolio, you have the skills for this role that she's trying to fill or he's trying to fill, she will walk with her resume to that company and be like, listen, you guys need a college degree. This guy does not have a college degree. But based on his experience, based on talking to this developer, I know he has what it takes to be a good addition to your company. Give him a chance and give him an interview. And you will get an interview, even though that company will never hire anybody without a college degree, especially if you're going self-applied route where you're just sending your application and not working with a recruiter. And this is what she said. She gave me the name of a company. And by the way, I'm going to have that interview at some point in the future. You guys can check it out. It's an amazing interview. But she said 8 out of 10 people that got hired with that company working with her did not have a college degree, even though that company would never make an exception. But they made an exception there. So what she said, if you're just sending your resume randomly, they will never make an exception because it's not a pre-screen like interview. You're just some random dude selling your interview, and they just take everybody out who doesn't have a college degree because they don't want to waste their time. They're getting thousands of interviews. But if you have a recruiter that's working on your behalf, she's going to go and she's going to advocate for you and make a case for you and say, listen, give this guy a chance. And then if that doesn't sell you on this idea of working with a recruiter, I don't know what will, because I personally had rejections one after the other with my resume because I don't have a college degree. And I spoke to recruiters that I know. They're like, Paul, why don't you give me your resume? You would have at least got an interview. Why did you not come to me? And the reason why is because there's a lot of misconceptions with recruiters that want to take your money. And a lot of times, recruiters that try to take advantage of you, they will get bad reputation in the business because you can't work long-term by taking advantage of clients. Unlike this girl that I talked about who's a recruiter, she told me, listen, yes, I make money from placing people, but I don't take advantage of that because I want to have a relationship with the people that I position for jobs, and I know when they want to move on to their next job, they're going to connect me and they're going to talk to me. So they want to build a long-term relationship that lasts. So that's why you should work with a recruiter 100%. That's something that I'm doing. But let's take a look at the comments and ask any questions about what we talk about. It'll be very important because I'd like to hear from you guys. Let's see here. Lorderson, hey, I have a question. I really want to do mobile dev, but the web stack has more jobs and more resources. I have been pushing through JS, HTML, CSS to work React Native. Am I wrong? No, you're not wrong. And I think what I would say, and again, I'm not a mobile developer, so I can't speak from that standpoint, but you are correct from the standpoint that there are more web dev jobs available. And if you do want to get into mobile dev, I like what you just mentioned there, and that's a great way of doing it. So what I would say, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React, exactly like what you're doing, and then build a bunch of React, projects. You could even, and if you want to position yourself to also be open to mobile position, 100% do React Native, and that's something that I will eventually get to and do. So you're on the right track. HTML, CSS, JavaScript, get really awesome with React. React Native is just a couple of different new things that you have to learn, and now you could make cross-platform applications. And what's awesome, not only can you build cross-platform applications just for, like Apple, Android, whatever, but you could also now go to clients that might have an existing React project that they want to extend and add JavaScript functionality. And because you know React Native, you could build them that native application for Apple or Android without rebuilding their whole projects. So you get paid. They don't have to build anything from scratch, so it makes sense. So you're definitely on the right track. Keep up with it. And yeah, Ken, I think that's what it is. Front-end mentor. I think that's the site. But it's the site, basically, they do give challenges to you of recreating certain projects, and that's the one. Kevin, the CSS guy on YouTube, did a great video about it, I think not too long ago. And guys, love all your questions. Keep them coming. Keep them rolling in. This is fantastic. Hologram Nunchucks, I don't know why I love your name. It's completely awesome. Complete a bootcamp as a full stack dev. I'm pretty hazy on the back-end tech. Should I still include it in my skill set? I don't want to oversell myself. So you complete a bootcamp full stack developer. Listen, I'm in the same boat as you. And what I did on my resume, let me come back here and share it with you guys. Definitely included. And, you know, and what I did on my resume here, as you could see, I basically, the skills that I'm very well versed and known for, I put them on the top. And so I kind of said HTML, CSS, WordPress, ignore WordPress, I got to delete it. It was just for a particular role I was applying to. JavaScript, React Cloud, everything React heavy, React API, like everything that I want to do is on the top. And the very last thing that I don't want to do, but I'm familiar with, kind of in your case, you might be hazy about some full stack stuff, I still put it on the bottom. And when people interview, I'm going to talk about how I want a job with this stuff. And if they ask me questions about this stuff, I'm going to basically talk about it from the standpoint like, yeah, I did full stack application. I did full stack code camp, and the idea was that I still want to focus on front end, but I do understand how everything works as a big picture, and I know how to connect to an API using the front end technologies and kind of talk about it this way. But definitely included, 100% is very important. So guys, by the way, I know I've talked about a lot of stuff. We talked about LinkedIn. We talked about portfolios. We talked about other stuff. So let's open it more to QA so I could kind of point directly to what you guys are working on and answer some of your questions. So let's load up. Challenge. First of all, thank you for being here. You know, regardless if you like what I do or not, but guys, I appreciate your love all the time. But hey, ask some questions about portfolio, about anything, about React, about, you know, LinkedIn, about resumes and stuff like that. But before we continue here, I'm just gonna sum up as quickly as I can, and then we'll take a look at some project ideas that you could do. Then I'll talk about my methodology of building a portfolio, like I promised earlier, and go from there. But quick review. Number one, we started with this idea. Once you learn how to code, once you started building your projects, even if you didn't build any projects yet, everybody should have a professional looking portfolio site, even though it doesn't have a portfolio. You need a home for yourself. And as I showed earlier, if you Google my name, you will find me and this site will pop up, right? My paulbraslavsky.com website. And I'm doing the things that I'm telling you to do. You know, I have my skills, I have my resume. I showed you earlier how to, if you don't have job experience, how to rewrite your resume using your portfolio projects in this bullet format. That is your experience, your projects. Now, because I don't have a portfolio section here yet, because I'm brand new, I'm just starting out, let's assume that, I don't have portfolio, so I didn't add that section. But I have a portfolio site that people could find me. And as you build experience, you could add it to here. I bought this from, and you could get this for free, by the way, from Bootstrap, made with Bootstrap or Bootstrap made templates. And everybody should do this. Go find a free template and create a portfolio site. That's number one. So when people, let's try this again. Let's go to Google. And when people Google your name, can't spell my own name. That's what you get for being Russian. And right, look, your GitHub comes up. I'm going to talk about it. Get your GitHub going. You know, paulbraslavsky.com comes up. Bam, right here. You see, everybody should have this as a bare minimum. Number one, this bare minimum. So if you take away anything from this live stream, go to, and I'll find it again, Bootstrap made. Go to Bootstrap made. Look at this. Browse templates. This is the exact template I used, right? If you use their free version, it has a watermark here. I paid $19 so I could remove the stupid watermark, but it's free. Who cares that it has a watermark? Everybody should have a home for their portfolio. So that's number one. Go out there and do this. Number two, you need to have a LinkedIn. Maybe you don't have all the experience I talked about. Maybe you're just starting out. At least get a LinkedIn profile with a good looking photo, right? Basic information that you have available, right? Maybe you don't have much, but you need to have it. You need to start early. Don't wait. Create a LinkedIn profile. And then number 3, which I didn't talk about yet, everybody needs to GitHub, right? Everybody needs to be committing code every time. And this is sporadic as hell. You know, I've been doing a lot more. 2019. And I started this, wow, I started this in 2013. That is crazy. I was a complete noob, had no idea what I was doing, but this is what I'm talking about. I started my GitHub 2013, 2014, completely empty. 2015, 1 commit, complete idiot I was, not doing anything. 2016, nothing. 2017, kind of stepping up my game. 2018, bro, getting on fire, starting to do stuff. 2019, more stuff. I'm studying, I'm hitting the books, I'm doing my courses, I'm doing these tutorials, I'm building my stuff. 2020, there was a break here. This is when I got hired. I was working, I was doing my things. Well, I got hired in January, but like at this point I was working hard, concentrating on my job. And then I was like, man, I'm gonna have to start positioning myself, leaving my job, let's move forward. And this is where I'm up to date in 2021. So you see, you need the history for your GitHub. So bare minimum, portfolio site, like I showed before, right? Where did it go? Where did the portfolio site go? Here, you need a portfolio site. This is a template, I didn't create it. You need this. This is Googleable. That means people type your name, they find you, right? If you want to get a job, you need to be found. Number 2, have a LinkedIn profile. Bare minimum. If you any takeaway from this video, get that going. Get that going. Get that going. And number 3, get a GitHub. I started mine in 2013. I was really committed in 2018 and 9. That's when I really started pushing through my development journey. So it showcased, put in the work, you see the history. You can't lie. I can't lie. Look at this. Can't lie about this. That you need GitHub and you need to commit all your stuff. A lot of this, by the way, a lot of this history, broken projects, crappy projects, but I'm learning, I'm stepping up my game, I'm doing what I need to do. And so you gotta keep moving, and that's what you guys do. So if you made it this far in the stream, I challenge you, do those 3 things that I talked about. If LinkedIn's not available in your country, pick something that is close to LinkedIn, but get a website, use that free template from iPortfolio, Bootstrap made, no excuse. Right? GitHub. If you don't have GitHub, you got to do GitHub. You got to do GitHub. I don't know how to tell you. Get GitHub going. LinkedIn, GitHub, portfolio, and that's amazing. Then we go from there. We'll talk about portfolios and everything else. So let me look at the comments. Quick review. So that's the bare minimum. Next, work on your resume. Follow this format. Literally copy my resume format. Save, screenshot. I'm giving you this tip. I paid money for this. Don't think you should steal stuff, but I get it. Sometimes we're in places and positions where we can't pay even 19, 20 bucks to get a resume template. Plus, there's templates available. Copy this format, style, skill section. Everything should be bullet points. I gave you a pro tip. Pro tip was, I don't have a job. How do I talk about my portfolio? Listen, put project that you're working on. I've worked on this project from June to July 2021. You know, where's my community project? You know, and then talk about what you did. Okay, the example I used form validation here. Let me reset this. Form validation here in your resume. Use JavaScript, ES6, whatever, JavaScript keyword stuff. Validate HTML forms, whatever. You know, created went from a Photoshop mockup to semantic HTML and CSS, and literally write the same things you would write for your job, but write it for your portfolio and use that as your experience until you get hired. That's exactly what you should do, right? And that's what you need to do. If you never went to college, don't put your education. I didn't put my education. If you have a college degree, put it on the bottom. So that's the pro tip about the resume and stuff like that. So with that being said, let me take a look at the comments, and we could talk about more portfolio. I could give you some portfolio ideas of what you could do, but in a nutshell, there's a lot of value in this stream. If you missed it, again, guys, smash the like button so more people could see it. But if you missed it, go back and rewatch it. There's a lot of great tips and everything that we talked about today. There's a lot of value that you guys are going to get from it, and I'm telling you, if you guys do the things that I'm doing, by the way, I'm doing these things, like I'm not showing you stuff that I'm not doing. Like that clearly is, go on my LinkedIn, looks the same. Go to paulbraslavsky.com. You will see that website. I'm doing the things that I believe are going to help you get the job. Let's see. Man, Tony, thank you. Keep it real. I want to keep it real with you because I don't want to like give you the fluff. Like I'm 41 years old. I can't waste time like meandering around trying to figure shit out. Like I gotta go and position myself in the best way possible to get to a better role, or to get to my first job when I first start out. I don't have time to waste. And even if you're younger or older, nobody wants to waste time. You shouldn't, because time is money, right? That's what people say. Time is money, and it really is. And so if I could help you get into this field, you know, and make progress, 100%, that's what I want to do. And so let's do like the last Q&A. Please don't be shy. Load up the comments with questions, because I want to answer the stuff that you're working with and doing. And so what are the best providers in hosting? Let me jump in. Jose, great question. Jose, you've been killing with questions. Like if I had like an award, you'll be like 5-star question asker person. And listen, thank you, Jose, because you're asking great questions and it helps everybody out. Everybody else should be asking questions too. What is the best provider for names and hosting? So for that basic portfolio that I showed you, the Paul Braslavsky, I'm literally the one that I showed you here, this project, I'm literally hosting it on Netlify, right? Very simple. This is a static HTML and CSS site. I'm hosting at Netlify. All my React projects, I'm hosting on Netlify. Some of my projects have a back end. I host them on Heroku. They have a very good free tier that is good for majority of stuff that we're working as beginner developers, you know, and that's what I'm doing. If you're using WordPress site for your portfolio site, you could use Bluehost, but for me, number one, Netlify and Heroku, and that's the services that I use. I'm very happy with them, and that's what I would recommend. And then for domain names, like for instance, Paul Braslavsky domain name, or like other stuff, if you're buying a name, I use Namecheap. Namecheap is a pretty good place. You get a good deal, and everybody should have a domain name which is their name. Hopefully no one's like took it, and so go ahead and do that, and that's what I would recommend. Yeah, I love the questions. Thank you guys for throwing questions. More questions. It's okay to have 2-page resume. I kept getting told to keep it 1 page, but if the employers don't mind 2 pages, I'd rather go that route. Listen, 2 pages is the maximum if you have a good experience. I'll give you this. If you have, let's say, 1-page resume and it shows like, you know, kind of gap in work history, definitely include all other stuff, because people want to see that you were employable and worked. So with that being said, if you have development experience, like if you don't have a development experience, and I would do like, let's say you have a 2-page resume, it could be your projects first, your past experience that's relatable, but I just talked to the recruiter, and this is what she said. And this only applies if you have enough of development experience. Like for instance, she said, Paul, she goes to me, Paul, you have enough development experience. Notice how all my development experience takes up that first page. That she said, in my case, I could avoid having a second page. Why? Because all this experience is like on the second page is not relevant to me getting a job as a developer. But if you don't have enough experience and you have maybe your project section on top, it wouldn't hurt having a 2-page resume, like I decided to go this route. So, but definitely don't go any more than 2 pages. 2 pages at most. 1 page is ideal, but 1 page is only ideal if you have that whole 1 page is all web development experience. And then, you know what I mean? That's the route I would go. Let's go to the next question. Tony, can I use front-end mentors as some of my projects? What I would say is that when you're starting out, you could use some of the front-end mentors projects that you did. And the reason why I'd say those is because you build those. It was a challenge, and the way they structure their projects is similar to the way the work you would be doing. But with that being said, what I would recommend is make sure moving forward, let's say you have 5 projects from front-end mentors, let's say, right? The 6th project, it should be a project you made from scratch that nobody else has. and then replace the project that the least you're happy about from front-end mentors in your portfolio, replace it with your own projects. And little by little, try to have all your awesome projects be your projects that you created from scratch, because those will always be the best ones. The ones that you built from scratch for your portfolio, not only from perspective of a portfolio from recruiters, because a lot of these recruiters, they see so many resumes, so many portfolios that front-end mentors, Udemy portfolio projects that everybody builds, they've seen them. And they'll be like, oh, you build it from this tutorial, you build this. And if they see something original, they will hold that at a higher value. But when you're starting out and when you don't have those portfolios, it's very important to make sure that, you know, you're putting something in, and that's how you start. And that's kind of how I started. But now I removed all those projects, and I'm trying to replace everything with my own personal project and personal like things that I built from scratch. Hope that helps you answer. Speaking of projects and project ideas, and guys, throw more questions. Don't be shy. Come on, guys. I want to chat with you guys. Whatever, any questions, no questions wrong. Listen, let me tell you why you guys should leave comments and questions. Because you might have a question that might be completely ridiculous, but ask it anyway, because somebody else might have that same question. And so when we talk about it, we help the whole community, all the people that are watching, to kind of hear, you know, different perspectives on different questions. So you're, by asking questions, you're helping the whole community grow and kind of get just a lot more information out of there. So really, really cool. So let's take a look at some like random portfolio. By the way, I'd love to review some of your portfolios. I just realized that that's a thing people do. So I could definitely would love to do that. So if you have a portfolio that you want to, you know, share or review either in private or in live stream, you could send me an email at codingafter30@gmail.com. I'd love to kind of, you know, basically review it, give you my feedback, you know, even though I'm some dude on the internet, but maybe I'll give you some valuable tips. And with that being said, let's take a look at some random portfolios, why they're good, why they're not good. And when we start, by the way, guys, there's no such a thing as a bad portfolio, because that shows that you're doing work, right? Okay, let's come back to this. Before I show you this stuff, that's another great one. Harvey Screen. Okay, what do you think of HTML email? So I don't have experience with HTML emails, but I did talk to DJ Norris, and he said from the, you know, from some of the job listings he saw, or just from his experience like dealing with that, it's actually not as easy as it seems, because the whole idea is that your email, there's so many different email providers, and when you create that HTML and CSS email, it needs to be looking good on all the different providers, on all the different browsers, and it has to have that consistency. So what I would say is that if you're starting out and you're learning HTML and CSS, just apply to those jobs, and if you get it, great, and you could do that. That will help you build experience, but use it as a stepping stone and not as your main goal to get there. So I personally did not take that route, but I know there's a lot of positions where you could get early on, like for instance HTML and CSS emails, or the position I got early on, all you need to know is HTML, CSS is doing WordPress, you know, management, where you just update the content and maybe add some little basic styling and stuff like that. So this is a route you could use as a stepping stone, but not your main goal. Your main goal should be to get a job as a developer and doing that. So Tony, man, God bless you with all the questions. Thank you so much. Do I need to learn a CSS library for React like Material UI, Tailwind? Do not learn Tailwind. That's such a small use case. I made a mistake of using Tailwind, and I like Tailwind, but don't learn it in terms of getting a job. And here, coming back to the resume, let me show you here. The two libraries, if you're working with React, that I would say you have to be familiar with, and this is kind of what I have in my resume, is Bootstrap and Material UI. Even though I know Tailwind, I didn't put Tailwind because I don't want to do any work with Tailwind, even though I'm using it as one of my bigger portfolio projects. So, but Bootstrap and Material UI, Bootstrap is the most common, just overall CSS library that you should know, but don't learn it until you know HTML and CSS. And then Material UI specifically if you're using React, and if you're using Material UI, also you would have to learn styled components and how to write those, because they That's what Material UI is based on. So that's recommend. But outside of you, when you're just starting out, outside these two, don't learn anything else. Don't waste your time. Bootstrap, Material UI, style components. Boom. That's what you do. Let's come back here. Yeah. Man, Tony, I got to start giving out prizes for people with amazing questions. Any question is amazing, by the way. Guys, let's see how many questions you guys could ask in the next 5 minutes. I'd love to see that. So let's see here. Tony, does my GitHub need to be perfect like what I commit to a project that I have not finished? Hey, that's most of the commits that you saw. That's exactly what you're talking about. Because a lot of times what you have to understand, when you're working on a project, I use it as a learning opportunity. And sometimes the thing that I learned in that project, even though I didn't finish, is more valuable than finishing the project. And then I start a new project. And every new project is better and better and better and better. Fail often and quickly so you could learn, right? And so a lot of the stuff that you saw on my GitHub, majority of them are unfinished project, and I only have 2 or 3 projects which are private, by the way, because I'm working with other people, and that are more like, these are the projects that I'm working towards in my portfolio. These are going to be the legitimate projects that I want to post. Nothing wrong with that. The most important thing, you just need to have that GitHub history, because nobody's going to go to my GitHub, right? Let's use this as an example. No recruiter is going to go to your GitHub and be like, all right, in 2020, what did Paul did here? Let me go here. Okay, he did something here. Let me open it here. Look how much time it's taking me. A recruiter does not have time to look through your commits and your code. And the one thing they don't have time for is to literally download this project and run it on their computer and test if it works. They're just gonna see like, oh, he's active. That's it. And then they're going to look at your portfolio and your portfolio projects. They're not going to go under the microscope. So everybody should be committing, even if it's like code that you're learning, even though that project you're not going to finish. That was a great question. I'm glad that you asked it, because the most important part is just you need to basically show people that quickly look at your GitHub for like 10 seconds that you have history of doing stuff. And as you could see, and let me switch back screen again, that I started in 2018 taking my development seriously, and as you could see, you know, I have plenty of commits, and that's what you guys have to do. You need to get that green on, because it doesn't matter what you're doing, but what this shows you're doing is you're actually coding and you're working on the things that you're doing and building projects. So with that being said, like, any last questions? Any last thing? Let me know. Smash the like button if you haven't yet. Subscribe to this channel if you're brand new. I know I was all over the place, but I think this was very loaded live stream with so much value. And the 3 things that I mentioned, you know, my challenge for you, get that going. Let's do a quick, super fast review. Number 1, go find a theme, set up this basic layout, put some basic information, regardless if you have a resume or not. Create a professional home using a theme. We talked about you could use free things from Bootstrap Made, and link in to your LinkedIn and your GitHub. So create a home for your portfolio. paulbasowski.com was mine, username.com, whatever it is. Then create a LinkedIn profile if you don't have one, and create 100%, create a GitHub. Create a GitHub if you don't have it 100%. So the number 1 homework, what to do is, number 1, create a home for your portfolio. Doesn't even have to have any of your portfolio stuff. If your portfolio projects suck, don't put them in there. Like I didn't put mine in here. Just create a home so people could find you. You could saw that if you Google my name, this is what pops up. Number 2, create a LinkedIn profile if you don't have one. Okay, make a home. Create those things that you're gonna build over time as you improve to make yourself noticeable. And number 3, if you don't have GitHub, go on GitHub, set up GitHub profile. That's the challenge for you for this, you know, stream that we talked about. That's the bare minimum. All the other tips I talked about, you know, how to position yourself if you don't have a college degree or you don't have work experience, working with recruiters, why that's important. Again, I will talk more about it throughout all my other videos, but I just wanted to give you a quick and big overview of everything that we're doing. And I hope you guys saw and appreciate the value that we had in this stream. I think there's so much gold in here. I'm not just saying it because it's my stream. I'm saying it because I wish somebody else had the same exact stream that I saw 4 years ago, that I would have been employed much more faster. So any last questions, any last things that you want to talk about? Let's do last, couple minutes here. And before we do the last parting thought questions, I just want to say, guys, I love you guys so much. I'm so appreciative of all of you guys jumping in and being part of this community. I'm some dude on YouTube that just wanted to share his experience of switching careers late in life, in my mid-30s, to get to a place that I want to go. And I want to share with you my story because it's not easy. It's very difficult. I want to make sure that you're getting different perspectives from different people. You don't just have to watch my YouTube channel, but I want you to understand that I started in my mid-30s and this is the work I had to do. And I wish I knew more about it earlier on because I would have gotten farther. And yeah, let's do some more last questions because this is awesome. Do I need to be very good with Figma and Sketch? No, you don't have to be good at Figma or Sketch. You should be familiar with what they are because you're not going to be a UX UI designer. You are a developer. So what you should be familiar with what Figma is, what Adobe is, and be familiar with if someone sends you a Figma file, how can you read the Figma file by looking at the design and looking up the different styling that the UX UI designer use, like what font size they use, what colors that they use, and be able to translate it and transcribe it into HTML and CSS. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm not a master at Figma. I'm not a master at Adobe XD, but what I do know is that a lot of times you will get a design in Figma, like the current contract that I just started for a month. They gave me a Photoshop file, and that's what I'm using to build out their React application. So you got to be familiar with it. Do I know how to use Photoshop? No, but I know enough to be able to read and open the file, look at it, and figure out like what I need to do in HTML and CSS to do it. So that's my 2 thoughts on that. And Figma and Adobe, those are the 2 big ones. So play around with them. They both have free, features, so you don't have to pay for it. And what I would say though, find some, I'm sure that you could Google Figma templates and or designs that are free. Find a bunch of them and see if you could recreate them with HTML and CSS. That's an amazing skill to have. And Tony, thank you for the love. Very informative. Thank you. Hey, that I try. I want to make sure that I'm same Jose, dropping gems as always. I just want to make sure that I'm giving you my honest, 100%. This is what I'm doing. And when my mind changes because something works better, I'm going to let you know. Why? Because I want you guys to succeed 100%. Do you know if employers run tests for performance optimization? Most of them don't, especially for your junior roles. Unless you're going for a more senior role, like a senior role, they will take that into account. As a junior or even mid, it's not a big thing. So I wouldn't even worry about that. Unless your app blatantly breaks because it has something that like when you try to move or do something, it like chugs along like a frame, like a slideshow, then yeah, it's a problem. But if your app is working fine and there's no glaring thing, no, nobody's gonna look. That's more for like senior level developers that are trying to architect a system and performance is a big issue. So no, great question though. Hologram with Nunchuk, man, such a good name, nice. So yeah, and I just want to say, guys, yeah, thanks for everything. I appreciate all you guys do. So I guess what we're gonna do, we're gonna end the stream now. If you guys sign in late and you missed what we did, 100% this stream is worth watching. Watch all my streams on 2x, and if you miss an episode, all my episodes are saved on the YouTube channel. Go back, rewatch them again. But I'm also gonna start doing all the little tidbits that are awesome. I'm gonna try to do clips of those as well, and repurpose that content so you guys have access to see just those sections. But yeah, definitely go back. And what I do, I listen to my own live streams weirdly enough, because a lot of times I'm like, damn, that was a good advice, Paul. And I watch all my streams on 2x speed, all my videos. Very amazing. And by the way, if you're new, subscribe to the channel. If you've been enjoying my videos, listen, I really appreciate the more you watch my videos, the more they help me. But with that being said, spend more time coding. Very important. So with that being said, I just want to say, guys, I hope you guys all have the best rest of the weekend. I love having a chat with you guys. I love when you guys jump in. It's always a pleasure to have you here. And no sorries. Look, guys, if you keep asking questions, I'm just going to keep streaming. That's how I do it here, right? So let's do this. Sorry, one more question. No, sorries. Do I need to know unit tests for junior React devs? Now, no, not really. What you should be familiar with is doing what they call manual testing, and it's basically testing stuff by pressing buttons. Like, for instance, manual testing would be, going to, let me screen share. Let's say, like, manual testing would be, like, I'll use my community project, is basically like, clicking stuff. Oh, okay, that works. I click the portfolio button, nothing happens. It should go to portfolio. Oh, that didn't do that. Or let's say I click this button. Let's say if this button didn't work, this is manual testing, where you're manually testing the functionality. Oh, okay, the responsiveness works. Okay, this works. Let's say, submit. Okay, I guess this works, so we need to fill out this form. That's manually testing. Okay, the reset button works. So you should be familiar with that, and that's basically, okay, if something doesn't work, going into, this is not a Chrome browser, Jesus Christ, but using inspect elements to kind of check and test to see like why stuff working. Also, if you're working with React, I don't have it here because it's not a Chrome browser, but using React Dev tools, you should be familiar with that, and not being an expert, but just like knowing what it is. And that's basically for junior level. That's kind of like what you would be doing and what you would be using and doing stuff. And then as you start getting more into it, then like using Jest for React or writing unit tests will become. But for me, like, that hasn't been a thing even in my current role now. And now that I've been working as a developer for a year and a half at my current company, now this idea of testing and running unit tests is going to become a little bit more important. But that's something that I'm starting to learn now. So you don't need it to get your job, but as you look into climb up into mid-level developer and more in a senior, then that becomes an issue. Yeah, so listen. Yeah, Paul, thank you. This info is absolute gold. Hey, man, glad that you guys found it awesome. Thank you for joining. And come back. I do this every weekend, Saturday, same time, some back channel, 6 p.m. U.S. Central Time. Trippin', thank you, man. So thank you all for everything. And guys, have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys on the next episode of Coffee Code and Chat. Indy, thank you for jumping in. Always pleasure to have your support. Glad to join today. Good weekend, everyone. Yes, good weekend, everyone. And with that being said, we are signing out, and I'll see you guys later.